Spiritual awakening isn't some gentle, glowing moment where you sit cross-legged and float into higher consciousness like a feather on a breeze. No, it's more like life grabbing you by the collar and saying, "Hey, wake up. There's more to you than this." Suddenly, the things you thought mattered start to feel empty. People you once connected with feel like strangers. And every conversation, every routine, every habit that used to fit feels just a little too small. You're not broken. You're evolving. This is what happens when a chosen one steps into a higher level of awareness. You're peeling back the layers that were never really you in the first place. But here's the thing. Awakening doesn't come with a manual. No one sits you down and says, "Congrats, you're seeing life differently now. Here's your guide to navigating it." Instead, you're left stumbling through questions like, why am I suddenly bothered by things I used to ignore? Why do certain people drain me now? Why does it feel like my life is falling apart when I'm supposed to be getting better? And the truth is, it's not falling apart. It's being stripped down to its real core. You're being prepared for clarity, authenticity, and a level of personal freedom most people never reach. That's why these spiritually awakening truths will not only make sense of what you're going through, they'll give you the tools to navigate it without feeling like you're losing your mind. We're going deep. We're cutting through the fluff. And yes, you'll probably laugh at yourself along the way. Because some of these shifts are so obvious in hindsight, you'll wonder how you ever missed them. First truth is, the life you thought you were living was never really yours. And no, I'm not saying you're living in some sci-fi simulation where robots are controlling you. Though, let's be real. If you've ever been stuck in a corporate meeting that could have been an email, you've probably wondered. What I mean is that for most of your life, you've been following a script that was handed to you before you even knew how to question it. Go to school, get a job, buy stuff, keep up with trends, smile for social media, and maybe, just maybe, you'll feel fulfilled. But here's the twist. Spiritual awakening is when you finally look at that script and think, hold on, who wrote this for me? It's that moment you realize you've been living according to other people's expectations, habits, and fears. That's why it feels like you're outgrowing your own life. Because you are. You're stepping out of autopilot. And that's both exhilarating and terrifying. The problem most people face at this stage is they confuse "something feels wrong" with "I'm doing something wrong." No. What you're feeling is the friction of old habits clashing with new awareness. You've been driving on a highway in cruise control, and suddenly you grab the wheel. It's disorienting at first, but here's the transformation. Once you question the script, you can rewrite it. This is where you start saying no to things that drain you, where you stop chasing validation from people who wouldn't even notice if you disappeared from their feed. Where you choose relationships, work, and habits that actually feel aligned, not just acceptable. You stop being the character and start being the author. And yes, some people won't like the new plot you're writing, but they're not the ones who have to live it. You are. Second truth is, silence is not empty. It's full of answers. But here's the challenge. The world is loud. Not just construction outside your window at 7 a.m. loud. I mean mentally loud. Social media feeds, 24-hour news cycles, everyone's opinions echoing in your head. It's like living next to a radio that's always on, except you never get to pick the station. And the crazy part? Most people don't even notice the noise until it's gone. When you step into higher consciousness, you start craving quiet. Not because you've suddenly turned into a hermit, but because you realize that without silence, you can't actually hear yourself think. At first, it's uncomfortable. You sit in stillness, and your brain starts throwing random thoughts at you, like that time you tripped in public 3 years ago, or the fact you have 3 different chargers, but none that fit your current phone. But then something shifts. You start noticing the patterns behind your thoughts. You see which ones are actually yours. Your parents' fears, your friends' opinions, society's rules. And that's where the transformation happens. When you learn to sit with yourself without instantly reaching for distraction, you start making choices from clarity instead of noise. Here's the outcome. You become harder to manipulate. You stop reacting to every opinion, every post, every argument that tries to pull you in. Your energy stops leaking into battles that don't even matter. You start focusing on the moves that actually build the life you want. Sure, your friends might joke about you going quiet, but little do they know, in that silence, you're building a version of yourself that's unshakable. Third truth is, not everyone is meant to walk with you on this path. And that's not a bad thing. One of the biggest shocks of spiritual awakening is realizing that the people who once felt like your home may no longer feel aligned with where you're going. It's not because you're suddenly better than them. It's because your energy no longer matches theirs. As your awareness rises, your presence starts to reveal truths in others they might not be ready to face. Some will feel inspired, but others will feel exposed. And when people feel exposed, they either grow with you or distance themselves from you. That's where most chosen ones struggle. You want to hold on to everyone. But awakening teaches you that clinging to the wrong people slows your growth. Here's the transformation. You stop chasing people who pull away. You stop watering relationships that only grow weeds. And you start building connections with people who challenge you to expand, who see your vision without you having to shrink it down for their comfort. Losing people can feel like breaking, but in reality, it's clearing space for the right ones to find you. And here's the next step. Instead of mourning what's gone, invest in what's arriving. That could mean joining communities that share your values, surrounding yourself with higher consciousness thinkers, or simply spending more time with those who feel like a breath of fresh air instead of a weight on your chest. You're not meant to carry everyone with you. You're meant to become the example that inspires them to take their own path when they're ready. If you've made it this far, you've probably felt every one of these truths in your bones. You know what it's like to question the script, to crave the kind of silence that gives you clarity, and to face the bittersweet reality of outgrowing people you once loved. That's the path of awakening. It's raw, it's challenging, and it's real. But it's also the most liberating journey you'll ever take. The fact that you're here, listening all the way to the end, means you're not just curious. You're ready to step fully into your own power, ready to see life through a sharper lens, and ready to live as the truest version of yourself. So here's my ask. If this spoke to you, if you found yourself nodding, laughing, or feeling that spark of recognition, take a second to like this video and subscribe. Not just because it helps this channel, but because it's a way of saying, yes, I'm on this path and I'm not turning back. Thank you for watching. Thank you for showing up for yourself. And thank you for walking this road of higher consciousness with me. Your transformation has already started. Now, keep going.